In our world, a beast can become a serpent in 500 years and a dragon in 1,000. Yet after 10,000 years of cultivation, I'm still the size of a tiny snake. Humanity rules supreme, here crushing all monsters. We used to have so many ways to grow stronger, but humanity blocked every path. Now, if a monster wants to make something of itself, there's only one option left: devouring humans. But in an era where humans rule, hunting them is suicide. If you harm one, the human realm hunts you down. So even though I carry dragon blood, I had to hide in the deep woods, surviving on tiny fish and shrimp. After tens of thousands of years of this misery, I couldn't take it anymore. To break this dead end, I decided to venture into the human world. But the moment I left the forest, I ran into an old bald monk. The old monk waved his golden alms bowl, and my body flew toward it, completely out of my control. But right at that moment, I unexpectedly crossed over into another world, the Red Moon world. It looked like a normal modern city, except for one terrifying detail: most of the people had turned into horrific monsters. By day, they mimicked their past human lives, but once night fell, their fangs came out as they hunted down any survivors. After watching them for 2 weeks, I realized this ruined world was actually the perfect answer to my dead end. Back in the cultivation world, humanity's dominance choked out our survival. If you wanted power, you had to risk eating humans, but one slip up there meant instant death. Here, however, hunting these human-like creatures carried absolutely no risk or consequences. These monsters felt exactly like humans, and their vital energy and blood essence were actually much stronger. Even better, I discovered I could freely travel between both worlds. This meant I could transform into a great serpent, and eventually become a dragon just by eating them. So I went to the nearest village and hid my body in a shallow stream. Soon 2 children dressed in rags approached. They looked like beasts wearing human skin, completely devoid of any spiritual energy. Even through the rushing water, I could smell the thick, metallic scent of blood on them. They definitely weren't human. I locked my eyes onto one of them, silently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the 2 creatures slowly stepped toward the water's edge, I suddenly burst from the stream, lunging forward to clamp my jaws around one of them. I dragged him into my mouth, but before I could even savor the taste, I sensed multiple bloody auras rushing toward the stream. Sensing danger, I willed myself back to the cultivation world. Instantly, a burning heat flared up in my stomach. This heat was like a wild ball of energy, thrashing through my body before finally rushing straight into my head. My brain buzzed violently, but the sensation passed quickly, leaving my mind incredibly sharp. It felt as if I had suddenly gained true enlightenment. For a monster, the first step of cultivation is gaining spiritual awareness, which is simple intelligence. The second step is becoming a true demon. Right now, I was transitioning into a demon. It seemed my plan was working perfectly. If I kept this up, I would. But before I could fully appreciate my new power, a fish darted out beside me. The Mountain Lord sent a messenger to bless us. Hurry up. You haven't even transformed yet, and you're already this lazy. How can you ignore such a massive opportunity? This carp had been my neighbor for over 1,000 years. I immediately followed him through the water. I knew of this Mountain Lord. Beyond our deep pool rose a massive peak, and he ruled from its deepest shadows. He was a tiger demon, the king of the beasts. They called him the Mountain Lord because he ruled the wild. His reputation was terrifying. He was a powerful, fully cultivated demon who used the ghosts of his past victims to lure unsuspecting travelers deep into his woods, devouring them to boost his own strength. He was easily the most formidable demon I had ever heard of. Soon the carp and I reached the shore. Standing near the water was a faint, blurry figure with a deathly pale face and hollow eyes. It had to be one of the Mountain Lord's ghost thralls. I stared intently at the shore. Once enough aquatic spirits gathered, the ghost raised its lifeless eyes to look at us. Our Mountain Lord has reached the peak of his cultivation. In 3 days, he will hold a sermon deep in the peaks to share his wisdom. You are all invited to listen, so you may achieve enlightenment sooner. Do not squander his generosity. The ghost repeated this 3 times in a flat, robotic voice, then vanished into a wisp of white smoke. The moment he left, the pool erupted into a frenzy. The local spirits bubbled with excitement, but I watched the smoke fade with a lingering sense of unease. It made sense for enlightened monks or holy sages to preach, but a man-eating tiger holding a sermon, I couldn't help but find the whole thing incredibly suspicious. Still, I kept my mouth shut. If a tiger wanted to preach, so be it. I could always go take a quick look. I dove back toward the dark bottom of the pool, but before I got very far, I spotted an old friend. "Hey, old turtle, what are you sneaking around for?" Startled, he tried to pull his head back into his shell, but relaxed once he recognized me. He swam over, clearly annoyed. "Are you trying to kill me? Don't you know monsters can die of fright too?" He paused nervously, looking around to make sure we were alone. Once he was sure the coast was clear, he leaned in closer. "Listen to me, my friend. Do not go to that sermon. Word has it the mountain lord reached a bottleneck in his cultivation, and he can't break through because he hasn't devoured enough humans. Holding a sermon right now is a terrible omen. That's all I'm going to say. Take care of yourself." With that, his legs kicked like propellers and he zipped away. I watched him go, sinking into deep thought. So that tiger really was setting a trap for us. Thank goodness the old turtle warned me. If I had mindlessly walked into his lair, I would have ended up as a snack. Sure, I could use my world-traveling ability to escape a deadly trap, but if I got caught off guard, I might die before I could even activate it. In this cultivation world, I had to watch out for both humans and rival monsters. To survive, I needed to hunt. With a single thought, I slipped back into the red moon world. Peering through the water, I saw that familiar blood-red moon hanging high in the night sky. Slithering out of the stream, I crept into the dark. The red moon world at night was incredibly dangerous, but that danger also created perfect opportunities. Under the crimson moonlight, the adult monsters went completely wild, leaving their territories to hunt down any surviving humans. But the weaker younger monsters stayed behind, hiding in their homes out of old human habits. If I played my cards right, I could slip into the empty village and feast on these younglings. Before I thought taking such a risk was unnecessary, but things had changed. With a hungry tiger demon waiting to eat me back home, bullying some weaker monsters seemed like a great plan. Soon I spotted a few young creatures in the village ruins. They scurried on all fours like feral beasts, completely unaware of my presence. Lunging from the shadows, I opened my jaws wide to swallow them. The young monsters shrieked like dying crows. One of them gaped its jaws, spitting out writhing root-like tentacles that were covered in a horrific mass of sharp teeth. I swallowed the creature, easily crushing it between my teeth in seconds. However, that brief struggle gave the remaining 3 monsters enough time to scatter into the dark. I watched them flee but decided not to give chase. The first light of dawn was breaking, meaning the dangerous adult monsters would be returning soon. I decided to retreat and digest my meal. But just as I turned to leave, a strange scent hit my nose. It wasn't a monster, it smelled like a real living human. A survivor. Perhaps I had zero interest in making contact with any locals here. Sensing they were getting closer, I didn't hesitate. With a flash of light, I vanished from the scene, leaving before they could spot me. Seconds later, several figures rushed into the clearing. They rushed onto the muddy path and froze, staring at the chaotic signs of a struggle. "What kind of beast left these tracks?" one asked. "Didn't all the animals die when the red moon first appeared?" They stared at the ground, utterly baffled. Could it be some kind of demon? Meanwhile, I was resting safely at the bottom of my deep pool. Just like before digesting the monster, sent waves of fiery energy surging through my stomach. It thrashed wildly inside me, but this time I was prepared. I carefully guided the chaotic energy toward my head. Though it was a clumsy effort, I managed to focus the power. The moment it pooled in my skull, my entire body shuddered, and an incredible wave of mental clarity washed over me. When I opened my eyes, the entire world looked completely different. Just then a voice gasped in shock. "Wang Hui, you actually became a demon." I turned to see the old turtle staring at me wide-eyed. "What did you just say, a demon? I am here?" "Look at yourself. You've definitely crossed over. Did you eat a human?" "No, absolutely not. I only ate monsters." He frowned. "You don't carry any sinful karma, so you're telling the truth. But how did you advance so fast without eating humans?" He scratched his head, utterly baffled. "What exactly is this sinful karma?" I asked. "Do you see anything strange on me?" As he prepared to explain, I looked closely at him. To my surprise, I could actually see faint wisps of dark smoke swirling around his shell. I glanced down at my own body and saw the same black mist swirling around me, though mine was much lighter than his. "You see it now, don't you?" the turtle said. "That's demonic aura. For a demon who hasn't eaten humans, the mist is pure black. But if you devour humans, the mist burns with a bloody red light that is sinful karma. To manifest this aura, you must first become a true demon. Since you can see it and project it, you've officially made the transition. I had successfully taken the second step of cultivation, but a question lingered in my mind. If demons have demonic aura, do humans have human aura? I asked the old turtle. Of course, he replied. Demons have their energy, and humans have theirs. In this era, humanity rules supreme. Heaven is above, earth is below, and human energy dominates the middle. It makes life incredibly hard for us beasts. He rambled on, but I tuned out his complaints. I was far more interested in how these energies worked. If humans and demons both have unique auras, what kind of energy did those monsters possess? I knew the stages: spiritual awareness, demonhood, forming a demon core, and finally shape-shifting. Reaching the third stage made you a force to be reckoned with, like the Mountain Lord. He was currently transitioning between the third and fourth stages. That explained why he sent his ghost thrall to lure us in. He wanted to devour us to fuel his shape-shifting ritual. I turned and scanned the pool. It was eerily quiet now. Almost every aquatic spirit with a shred of intelligence had eagerly rushed to the mountain, likely never to return. Soon I would rule this entire pool. Well, except for the old turtle, but he was a friend. I relaxed, though I knew my journey was just beginning. I reckon my biggest headache is still that mountain tiger. If it gobbles up all the fish, shrimp, and other monsters, it might target the beast downstream. Since the old turtle and I live in this deep pool, we are likely next on its hit list. I need to find a way to defend myself fast. Sure, devouring those strange beasts keeps my cultivation going without the struggles other demons face, but digesting them takes time. Growing strong enough to face that tiger overnight is just too tall an order. Right then, a sudden shock hit my head like a massive sledgehammer, leaving me completely dazed. I collapsed to the bottom of the pool as the world spun around me. An invisible force threw the deep undercurrents into absolute chaos. The waters churned wildly. It took forever for me to pull myself together and raise my head, still feeling completely dazed. What on earth just happened? Fighting the agonizing discomfort, I looked around and saw a strange golden mist shimmering across the water. It felt so sacred that just glancing at it made my skin crawl. What is that slithering? Slowly toward the surface, I peered toward the shore. Two humans in flying fish robes stood there, shrouded in a faint, misty white aura. That must be human essence. But deep within their white mist, I spotted flickers of gold. Judging by their uniforms, they looked like high-ranking imperial officials. Could that golden glow be the dynasty's fortune? Yet the thing causing my skin to crawl wasn't these two. My eyes darted to the rectangular stone carving lying right at their feet. The moment I looked at it, a blinding glare pierced my eyes, striking pure terror into my very soul. It radiated a brilliant golden light, shining as bright as the sun. That slab bore only 3 carved words, Shugun Dang. Yet those 3 words felt heavier than a mountain. The suffocating pressure crushing me came entirely from this carving. Meanwhile, the 2 officials scanned the area, staring tensely at the rugged path ahead. That winding trail leads straight up to the Tiger Lord's mountain territory. I was deeply confused. Have the humans realized the tiger is planning something big? Placing that stone tablet by my pool might keep the beast in check, but it is currently crushing me to death. I stared at that tablet for a long time, too terrified to move, before finally retreating deep into the water. I was completely powerless against this unfair torment. Desperate to escape, I triggered my ability and vanished, crossing over into the Red Moon world. I collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. I can handle a heavy weight for a short while, but that relentless pressure was just too much. If a single tablet can break me, this cultivation world is far too dangerous. I'd rather explore this safer realm instead. Looking around, I realized I had materialized on the familiar forest path. Time to check on the nearby village. Having unlocked my spiritual powers, those level 1 or level 2 beasts shouldn't pose any threat to me. I boldly slithered back toward yesterday's settlement. I reached the outskirts within minutes, but the scene at the entrance made me freeze. 3 small corpses lay scattered on the ground. They were young children, their bellies completely ripped open in a gruesome, bloody display. They died horribly. Strangely enough, I actually recognized them. These were the 3 monster kids I spared just last night. I had planned to let them fatten up before eating them myself. To think someone else got to them first. I was quite annoyed. But then a sudden commotion ahead caught my attention. Normally, these beasts mimic human behavior by day and only hunt survivors at night. Since the sun is still up, what could possibly trigger a battle inside the village? Unless someone is actively hunting them. I slithered forward, gliding into the village. A group of humans was fighting for their lives against dozens of mutated beasts. Some monsters spat writhing tentacles, while others sprouted leathery bat wings. They screeched like demons, lunging at the humans. Surprisingly, these people possessed bizarre supernatural abilities. Some spat fire, others wielded brute strength. But even with these tricks, they stood no chance against such an overwhelming horde. Escape was impossible. It was only a matter of minutes before they'd be torn to shreds. Sensing their doom, a burly fighter glanced darkly at his teammate. Without warning, the brute swung his heavy blade. He hacked right into his own companion. Blood sprayed everywhere as the poor man collapsed, sending a heavy wave of copper scent into the air. Instantly, the eyes of dozens of ravenous monsters locked onto the bleeding body. In a heartbeat, the horde swarmed him, tearing his limbs and organs apart. The initial knife wound wasn't fatal, but against dozens of monsters, he had no chance. He could only watch in sheer horror as he was eaten alive. The remaining survivors stared in disbelief at the brute. This man was their captain, yet he betrayed them. He hissed with a chilling cold voice, telling them to move, because sacrifices were necessary to survive. He turned and sprinted away without looking back. The others hesitated for a second before scrambling after him, but one body couldn't satisfy a dozen-strong horde for long. Within seconds, the beasts caught up to the fleeing squad. The captain glanced back at his crew, raised his sword, and struck again. This time his target was a heavy-set teammate. A flash of cold steel sent the poor guy crashing to the dirt. Two of his companions gasped. The two yelled in horror, but instead of running, they grit their teeth and stood protectively over their fallen friend. The captain didn't care. He just sneered and ran faster. Soon, only the injured man and his loyal defenders remained. They shook with fear but kept their weapons raised, bracing for the worst. But right as the horde lunged, I burst into the clearing. The moment my massive serpentine form emerged, the monsters froze in their tracks. They sensed a terrifying pressure radiating from my scales. These beasts had enough intelligence to hesitate. As for the three humans, their eyes went wide, thinking the exact same word, demon. I stared back at the frozen standoff. I flicked my tongue, tasting the air. As I eyed the survivors, I noticed a deep blade wound on one man's knee and felt a brief wave of shock. Can these monsters use swords? I glanced back at my own body. With my thick coating of pitch-black scales, their blades wouldn't even leave a scratch. But as I was pondering this, the pack lost all reason, charging at me like rabid beasts. They had caught a scent of my blood. It was my blood energy dozens of times more potent than theirs, a completely irresistible feast. I coiled my massive body into a defensive spiral, raising my head and locking my slit pupils onto the oncoming horde. The moment they crossed 30 meters, I launched myself forward. With a thunderous impact, my heavy scales sent the front line flying. I thrashed wildly through their ranks, and they couldn't do a single thing to stop me. Their claws and teeth clanged uselessly against my hide, unable to leave a mark. Without a scratch, I was functionally invincible. It took me over half an hour to systematically slaughter every last one of them. Though powerful, I am still. Not quite at a legendary stage. My best moves are still just tail swipes and bone-crushing bites. Facing a crowd, I have to rely on a slow war of attrition. If I had true magic, this would have been over in seconds. I scanned the bloody clearing, then began swallowing the fallen beasts. After devouring 7 of them, a comfortable fullness washed over me closely, followed by a heavy wave of exhaustion. I needed to find a safe spot to sleep. Just as I turned to leave, I remembered the 3 survivors. They had been trying to play dead, but under my sudden glare, they panicked. Staring into the eyes of a giant serpent, they could feel death looming over them. Seeing them freeze up amused me. I only wanted to mess with them anyway. I had no real intention of eating them. With a single thought, I crossed back into the cultivation world. Immediately, that crushing weight pressed down on me again. It was incredibly uncomfortable. That stone tablet is relentless. But as I raised my head toward the surface, I noticed something strange. The water was still glowing gold, but the crushing pressure felt significantly lighter. Why was that? Why did the suppression weaken? After a quick rest to digest, I decided to consult my old friend, the wise turtle. He had retracted completely into his shell, drifting aimlessly in the current. Hidden among the rocks, he was barely visible. I slithered over to him. Gently tapping his shell with the tip of my tail, I called out, "Hey, old wise one, it's me, Wang Hui." At my words, he slowly poked his head out of his armored dome. "Wang Hui, what brings you here?" he grumbled, but suddenly he winced, a look of agony crossing his wrinkly face. I realized instantly that the stone tablet's pressure was hurting him deeply. "Are you all right, old friend?" I asked. If that tablet hurts you so much, why not just leave this pool? And go where? He retorted. Under this ward, this pool is the safest place around. Now what do you want? Hurry up so I can tuck my head back in. Once my head is inside, I don't feel a thing, he muttered. I quickly explained my situation to him. The old turtle stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. What you're telling me, the divine tablet's pressure suddenly weakened for you. That is impossible. We are lucky it hasn't vaporized us. Why would it ease up on a demon? He shook his head, but then paused, giving me a strange, calculating look. Unless you did something incredibly virtuous. Only acts of great merit would make a divine relic ease its weight on you. I froze. Merit. Could saving those humans in the Red Moon world have earned me karmic virtue? Is that why the tablet's crushing weight eased up on me? The old turtle watched my expression, clearly guessing something, but he chose to stay quiet. He sighed and warned, Wang Hui, take my advice. Do not leave this pool anytime soon. It is incredibly dangerous out there right now. I looked at him. Are you talking about the Tiger Lord's scheme? I asked. Yes, he replied gravely. The beast went too far, drawing the attention of the human empire's high investigators. I fear a massive storm is brewing, and we do not want to be caught in it. Did the Mountain Lord do more than just devour humans and demons? The old turtle seemed annoyed by my questions. Why ask so much? Just stay inside like I told you. With that, he pulled his head back into his shell, preparing to go back to, playing dead. Since he shut me out, I could not press further and left. Before I knew it, another day slipped by. By the second night, I finally finished digesting. I woke up feeling completely refreshed, with boundless energy surging through my body. After digesting those monsters, the energy did not rush to my head like before. Instead, it gathered in my belly. It felt like I could actually guide it. Staring at my stomach, I tried to focus my mind and control this strange energy, even though it was my first attempt. It felt completely natural, as if I was born with this instinct. I channeled the energy up and spat it out. Instantly, it shot forward like dozens of flying swords slamming into the distant ground. The impact was so strong that it actually made the ground tremble. I was absolutely shocked by my own power. I had no idea what this technique was. I had just casually released the energy from my gut. What is more, it seemed to slowly recharge over time. I spent hours studying my belly after that, but still could not figure it out. All I knew was that it came from digesting monsters and growing stronger. Not knowing its real name, I decided to call it demon energy. Suddenly, a massive noise echoed from above. Thunder was roaring relentlessly outside the pool, as if a massive storm was brewing. What was going on out there? Something felt deeply unnatural. I looked up toward the surface. The murky water could not block my vision, and I could see a thick blanket of dark clouds rolling in, blocking out the sky. The clouds cast a dark shadow everywhere. Staring at them, an intense feeling of unease washed over me. There was a suffocating pressure in the air, accompanied by a sharp, stinging dread. It was as if my primal instincts were terrified. After some hesitation, I decided to get closer to the surface for a better look. Slithering upward, I swam rapidly toward the top of the pool. Once my head broke the water, my eyes immediately locked onto the Shigunding stone on the shore, glowing like a miniature sun in the pitch-black night. Only demons could see its brilliant glow. To ordinary humans, it looked like a common rock. But compared to the agonizing pain I felt last time, I was doing much better. The crushing suppression from the Shigundang had actually weakened quite a bit, and getting closer did not make it worse. My pupils dilated with excitement. It proved that whether I saved humans or killed monsters, I could earn karmic merit. This invisible force meant nothing in the post-apocalyptic world, but in a world of cultivation. It was incredibly valuable. Humans have countless sacred wards like this. If I gather enough merit to ignore their holy power, I will have a massive advantage if we ever clash. I could already see myself slithering past these wards completely unharmed. Turning my gaze from the stone back to the sky, I watched lightning crackle violently through the churning black clouds. A suffocating dread filled the air. The epicenter of this raging electrical storm was deep in the heart of the mountains far from my deep pool on the outer edge. Looking toward the peaks, I had a strong suspicion. These bizarre storm clouds and violent lightning bolts seemed to point directly to the Mountain Lord. Could his upcoming human transformation be triggering a heavenly lightning tribulation? I stared at the dark sky, lost in thought. I knew that powerful demon was at the absolute peak of his power, right on the verge of shapeshifting. That was why the humans had scrambled to place those holy stones along the trails. This lightning was likely. His transformation, tribulation. I wondered if he would actually survive it. The old turtle insisted he would fail, but you can never be too sure about reality. Personally, I hoped he would fail. That demon is far too ruthless. He devours humans and fellow demons alike. I shook my head, preparing to dive back down when something caught my eye. I froze instantly, locking my gaze onto the dirt road leading up the mountain. Through the darkness, I clearly saw two eerie figures gliding rapidly down the slope. They looked human, but they had no legs floating effortlessly. These had to be the mountain lord's ghost thralls. In my eyes, they were emitting a faint, glowing mist. I watched them and realized something. Demon energy is black, human energy is white, monster energy is gray, and ghost energy is purple. I carefully memorized these colors. They would be perfect for identifying any creature I encounter in the future and figuring out exactly what they are. Still, why were these ghosts here? With the mountain lord facing a massive crisis, why would he send his thralls down? Now I kept my eyes locked on them as they floated rapidly toward the base of the mountain. But the moment they stepped foot near the bottom, the shigandang by my pool flared with an intense burning light. The lead ghost shrieked in agony, instantly disintegrating into wisps of white smoke. Seeing that happen made my skin crawl. Talk about total annihilation. That stone ward is absolutely lethal. I looked ahead and saw the surviving ghost frozen at the entrance, not daring to take another step. I was highly curious about their mission, and just as I wondered, the ghost suddenly bowed in my direction. It was a strange, polite gesture, like a refined scholar greeting someone. My curiosity piqued. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to slither down to the edge of the water to see what it wanted. I swam out of the pool and quickly reached the bank. The ghost bowed deeply again, then spoke in a hollow, robotic voice. By order of the mountain lord, all demons are invited to Dang Mountain to hunt the mountain god. Dang Mountain had to be the peak, looming right in front of me. The realization hit me, but my slitted pupils dilated in sheer shock. What on earth was this ghost saying? The mountain lord wanted to rally demons to hunt down a god. Hunting a god, that is an insanely bold move for a demon. In the legends, mountains have mountain gods, and rivers have river deities. A mountain god rules over the land, controlling the weather, warding off disasters, and bringing blessings. There was no denying that mountain gods hold incredibly powerful positions in mythology. Of course, their power depends on the size of the mountain. The gods of the 5 sacred peaks are legendary, but a deity ruling over a tiny dirt hill is another story. But Dang Mountain is massive, meaning its god is no pushover. The mountain lord is incredibly reckless to try this. He must be desperate, backed into a corner by the humans. Desperate to complete his transformation, he decided to strike first and gather an army to kill a god. No wonder the old turtle said his crimes were unforgivable. But wait, how did the old turtle know all of this? I suddenly realized that old guy is definitely hiding some deep secrets. Still, I shrugged it off. If he wanted to hurt me, he would have done it already. Plus, he is terrified of dying even more than I am. I went back to the bottom of the pool and drifted off to sleep. Shuttling between worlds is mentally exhausting, so with a full belly, I quickly fell asleep. Before long, a loud bang startled me awake. Right in front of me lay a bizarre piece of jade carved in my exact likeness. Resting on the dark bottom, the pristine jade looked completely out of place. Curious, I swam closer to inspect it. The moment I approached it triggered a mechanism, turning into a beam of light that shot straight into my body. Looking down, I saw a strange tiger totem etched onto one of the black scales on my belly. I was baffled. I tried channeling my energy into it, but nothing happened. Having no other choice, I ignored it and wondered if I should head back to the Red Moon world. Suddenly, a familiar shadow swam past. It was the old turtle. "Hold on, where are you going?" I asked, stopping him as his legs paddled like propellers. "Where do you think I am running away?" He replied helplessly. "But why run?" I asked. "You said this pool was the safest place." "Safest. That was 3 days ago. Have you been living under a rock? Do you really not know what happened?" 3 days. I gasped, shocked. I had no idea I had been asleep for 3 days. I immediately begged the old turtle for details. Seeing my confusion, he sighed deeply, holding nothing back. "In the last 3 days, chaos broke out on Dang Mountain. the mountain lord gathered a horde of demon kings and actually slaughtered the mountain god. The deity is dead. A wave of shock crashed through my mind. He actually did it. He succeeded in killing a literal god. How powerful is this tiger demon? But wait, I asked, deeply confused. Even if he killed the god, why do you have to run? The turtle sighed. Sometimes you seem smart, but other times you are incredibly dense. The mountain god was personally appointed by the emperor. A demon killing him is a direct insult to the throne. Imperial exorcists from the Xingtian Bureau will be here soon to purge the entire mountain. If we stay, we will be wiped out too. The turtle shook his head, urging me to flee before swimming rapidly toward the exit. I watched him leave feeling incredibly conflicted. If I stay, those human exorcists will treat me like common pest and wipe me out. That would be a senseless death. But if I leave this pool, where can I even go? My entire existence had been centered around this water. I felt lost, but I quickly hardened my resolve. If I do not know where to go, I will just travel in the opposite direction of Dang Mountain. I will find a safe haven eventually. Outside, despite the daytime, the mountain was pitch black, swallowed by thunderous storm clouds. Coiling my body by the edge of the pool, I stared quietly at the dark, choked sky. The mountain god is dead, yet the storm clouds remain. I have no idea what that tiger demon is planning. Honestly, I felt a little envious of him. At least when he makes a move, he shakes the entire world. If I tried to make trouble, I probably wouldn't even cause a ripple. But there is no time for envy. I need to run. I quickly left the pool behind and slithered deep into the forest. I traveled for hours, losing all track of time and distance. I just kept moving until the storm clouds faded and warm sunlight finally filtered through the trees. I finally stopped walking when the light hit me. The moment that single ray of sunshine touched my skin, a wave of pure disgust washed over me. I felt my energy draining away. Looking up at the sky, I wondered if the sun was somehow. It was bizarre. In the red moon world, I never feared the sun. Are the suns in these two worlds different? I couldn't wrap my head around it, so I just stuck to the shadows, trying to get as far from Dayan Mountain as possible. I kept going until sunset and finally stopped. I was far enough from Dayan Mountain to finally breathe easy. Looking around, I had no clue where I was. After a moment, I slithered my massive body toward the dirt road, just outside the trees. Soon I reached the edge of the woods. Nothing but trees in sight, but then I sensed something strange ahead. To my front left, a thick white mist hung in the air. In my world, white mist means one thing: human presence, and lots of it. There must be a massive crowd of humans ahead. Is it a town? I had no idea where I was, but after weighing my options, I decided to check it out. I quickly slithered through the grass, heading straight toward that heavy presence. Pushing myself to the limit, I quickly neared the source of the human energy. It turned out to be a village. It was the dead of night, and the place was dead silent with everyone asleep. But then the village dogs started barking. They went wild. I hadn't even reached the village yet, and they were already raising the alarm. I instinctively tried to hide to avoid being spotted, but it was too late. Someone was already standing right behind me, blocking my retreat. It was an old man, short, with snow-white hair and a face full of smiles. He stared right at me without a hint of fear. Keep in mind, I'm a giant snake over 60 feet long. Normally, people would be scared to death, but he was completely calm. I realized instantly that this was no ordinary human. I stared at him, but I couldn't sense what he was. Normally, living things have an aura, but he had none. I immediately went on high alert, silently, priming the demon spirits in my belly. If a fight broke out, I'd strike first. If I lost, I'd retreat to the Red Moon world. Then he spoke. A friend from afar. What a joy, Lord Dragon, you shouldn't be here. Come with me to a better place to chat. The short old man smiled, showing zero fear. Knowing he was dangerously powerful, I didn't dare make a reckless move. Suppressing my urge to flee, I spoke to him in human tongue. He blinked in surprise, then turned and walked away. I quickly followed. His pace seemed slow, yet each of his steps crossed a massive distance. Was this the legendary earth-shrinking technique? I pushed myself to the absolute limit just to keep up. After a while, he smiled and said we had arrived. I looked up and saw a magnificent mansion glowing with brilliant golden light. I stared at the golden estate in absolute shock. How could a palace like this just appear in the middle of nowhere? This guy was definitely not human. I turned and glanced warily at the short old man. I wondered if he was some high-level demon trying to lure me in to eat me. A luxury mansion in the deep woods is always a trap. Honored dragon, why not step inside? The old man chuckled, completely relaxed, and crossed the threshold first, so into the estate. Peering through the door, I saw a massive courtyard. I was still suspicious of a demon trap, but curiosity got the better of me. If things turned ugly, I could always escape back to the Red Moon world. Steeling myself, I wriggled my way inside. A body inside. Once through the gates, I entered a massive courtyard. It was spacious enough to fit my giant form, but I couldn't venture any deeper into the estate. My body was just too huge to squeeze through any of the inner doors. "You certainly have a lot of free time to keep this place so spotless," I noted, looking around the pristine courtyard. "A peaceful mind makes a clean home, no sweeping required," he replied. "Then why bring me here?" I asked, refusing to beat around the bush. I didn't even know if he was a demon or a ghost, and I didn't want to push my luck. "It is nothing major," he said smoothly. "I just wanted to keep you from disturbing the villagers or them offending you. Are you here for the Hu family wedding?" The old man smiled. "The Hu family wedding?" I asked, completely bewildered. "Is that not it? The Hu family, near Lee Village, is marrying off their daughter, inviting demons from all over. You are an outsider demon in this territory, so I assumed you were invited," he said, puzzled. "No, I am just an outsider seeking refuge. I have never heard of this wedding." Hearing this, the old man smiled, his gaze turning deeper as he looked at me. Then he spoke slowly. "Seeking refuge, don't tell me you fled from a Dayan mountain." I was shocked. I never expected this short old man to guess my origin so easily. Who in these parts doesn't know that the Dayan mountain lord slaughtered a mountain god? It is a tragedy everyone knows about. You were smart to flee before. You got caught in the crossfire," the old man said, shaking his head. When he mentioned the mountain god's death, a flash of pure anger crossed his eyes. I was amazed by his sharp mind. "May I ask who you are, sir?" I inquired, desperate to know. "I am old Huang," he replied with a smile. "Then may I ask your true origin?" "Mr. Huang. Does an imperial degree count? If so, I certainly have one. I passed the examinations in the 7th year of Kaiyuan." At this, a wave of pride washed over his face. Then he glanced outside the mansion and smiled warmly. "Meeting you today, honored dragon, feels like finding an old friend, but dawn is breaking and you must go." He paused as if remembering something, then reached into the air and a scroll materialized in his hand. He tossed the scroll right onto my head. "Consider this a gift between friends." I was stunned and tried to speak, but the world around me began to shatter like glass. An invisible force pushed against me, and my surroundings spun wildly. When I finally came to, I was lying in a grassy field. That massive mansion had vanished without a trace. It was unbelievable. I quickly scanned my surroundings and spotted something unusual just ahead. A small shrine stood by the roadside holding plates of fruit and pastry offerings. Carved above were the words, "Earth God." I stared at the clay statue inside, utterly dumbfounded. The face of that clay figure belonged to none other than Mr. Huang himself. Mr. Huang was actually the Earth God. Everything clicked. No wonder I couldn't sense his true nature. He was a local deity, and he only showed himself because I got too close to his village. While mountain gods rule the peaks, earth gods oversee the land. Earth gods watch over the soil. The roles are similar, but their domains vary. Some rule vast territories, while others only guard a couple of small villages. That meant Mr. Huang was the guardian deity of the very village I had almost walked into. My skin crawled just thinking about it. I was a newly turned demon, yet I had crossed paths with a literal god. Talk about a close call. There was no way I could have won a fight against him, even if he only ruled a tiny village. Perhaps he spared me because my demonic aura was pure. If my energy had been tainted by the blood of humans, that deity would have obliterated me on the spot, showing absolutely no mercy to a monster like me. I was still lost in thought when the sun began to rise. The harsh light forced me to stop and slither away. But just as I turned, a voice from the shrine echoed in my ear. "If you have nowhere to go, head east. The territory to the east belongs to the Hu family, and humans rarely go there." It was Mr. Huang's voice. I immediately bolted into the forest to escape the burning sun. Then I remembered the scroll he had given me the night before. I gently shook my head, letting the scroll slip off. The moment it hit the ground, it unrolled itself, releasing a rich scent of ink. I stared down at it. The paper was completely blank. No signature, no painting, nothing. There was only a single written character right in the center. I couldn't read it. The left side resembled the character for fish, while the right looked like some strange symbol. Did the Earth God really just toss me a piece of useless trash? As I stood there puzzled, my belly suddenly burned with warmth. I looked down. The mysterious tiger emblem on my scales was glowing brilliantly. As the light intensified, something magical happened. The blank scroll seemed to imprint itself directly into my mind. The character hovered clearly in my consciousness, its complex shape locking into my memory. Instantly, I understood its meaning and pronunciation. It was pronounced A. Right then, the scroll spontaneously burst into flames, turning to ash within seconds. The ashes drifted away in the wind. What kind of bizarre gift was this? What had the Earth God actually done to me? Even the tiger pattern on my belly remained a mystery, but I had no time to overthink. I needed to find shelter. Ever since fleeing Dian Mountain, I had been homeless. The Earth God had advised me to head east, claiming the Hu family territory was empty. This Hu family had to be demons, probably foxes. With no other options, I decided to take my chances. Maybe I could find a nice pond to settle down in for a while. Spotting the rising sun to the east, I decisively slithered in that direction. I lost track of how long I traveled. At first, I was still following the main dirt road. I occasionally spotted farmers carrying hoes, but gradually signs of humanity dwindled to nothing. The dirt road vanished entirely, swallowed by thick trees, dense vines, and jagged rocks. No ordinary human could ever cross this wilderness. But for a giant serpent like me, it was smooth sailing. I easily glided through the dense brush and soon reached a forest of towering ancient trees. The gloomy environment was absolutely perfect, with massive leaves overhead, blocking out the sun. This place was perfect. I had no idea where the Hu family was, but this forest felt like home already. I scanned the area looking for a cozy spot to settle down when suddenly my instincts flared. I realized I wasn't alone. I tensed my massive body, preparing to strike. In my vision, faint wisps of black mist began to rise, rapidly closing in from all directions. Black mist meant demonic energy. I was being surrounded by a horde of minor demons. I opened my jaws and let out a warning hiss, unleashing my own demonic aura to ward them off. That was when dozens of foxes darted out from the shadows. They came in all colors, white, gray, black, and yellow. I looked around and saw about 100 foxes, but only a few had any demonic energy. This meant only a handful had actually cultivated. Since they were just beginners, I wasn't afraid. I opened my massive jaws, baring my fangs ready to strike, but the next second I instantly shut my mouth and dropped my guard. Up ahead, I sensed an incredibly thick demonic aura. Compared to that monster's presence, my own weak energy felt like nothing more than a fart. Before long, a dull-furred fox approached. This creature was walking upright on two legs, holding its front paws behind its back like a human. For a second, I couldn't tell if it was a beast or a man. "Dragonkind, why have you entered our family's territory?" the old fox asked, speaking with a human voice. "Great fox spirit, I didn't mean to trespass. I was just passing through and meant no harm. Please forgive me." I kept my posture humble. A snake trapped in someone else's house has to bow. As for why, I called him fox spirit instead of something else. There was a good reason. Monsters usually address each other with flattering titles for good luck. There are many nicknames for foxes like Shimei Yagan or even Azi, but none of those were respectful enough. To truly flatter them, fox spirit was the only appropriate title. Hearing my words, the old fox slowly sized me up like a human. Watching him, I couldn't help but grow incredibly wary. I couldn't gamble on whether he'd let me go. I was the one trespassing, so it was only fair if they attacked. But the old fox showed no hostility. He just kept scanning me, his tiny eyes flashing with surprise. This serpent's energy is so pure. He really hasn't eaten a single human. That's incredible. My family has always been peaceful, but even I tasted human flesh out of curiosity when I was young. Sensing his reaction, the old fox was deeply surprised. These days, without eating humans, you have to live 100 years to cultivate. But ordinary beasts don't have that lifespan. A fox only lives about 10 years. To survive a century without special help is a pipe dream. This made the old fox realize that I was no ordinary serpent. Smiling warmly, he spoke up, saying, "My dragonkind friend, a guest is a guest. Since you're here, you might as well join us. It happens to be my daughter's wedding tomorrow night. If you're free, why not stay and celebrate?" Hearing this, my pounding heart finally settled. I could tell he seemed harmless, but that was likely just on the surface. Foxes are famously cunning, so I couldn't lower my guard. But since he invited me personally, I accepted. "Wonderful," the old fox cheered. "The wedding is tomorrow night. Why don't you rest here in our territory for now?" He smiled like a polite human. I had no reason to refuse, so I agreed. He gathered a pack of foxes to guide me deep into the woods. We finally stopped in a quiet clearing. Everything within this area is yours to rest. If you need anything, just call the nearby foxes. I was shocked. How massive was their territory to just hand over a whole forest clearing? But the old fox had no idea what I was thinking. After settling me in, he left with his pack. I breathed a sigh of relief, coiled up, and tried to sleep. But the second I closed my eyes, my mind was filled with that one unique character. It glowed gold in my mind, carrying a strange, mystical energy. Right now, I didn't care about the mystery. It lived in my head. Whenever I closed my eyes, it appeared without permission. Helpless, I had to. I slowly studied it. It didn't seem to mean anything, as if it just wanted to live in my head. I tried to decipher its secrets, but after staring for a long time, I found nothing useful except it looked beautiful. It carried a strange magic, drawing me in until I couldn't look away. But as I kept staring, the meaning of the symbol didn't seem so hard to understand anymore. Then I opened my massive jaws and chanted a single syllable. The moment I spoke, an invisible shockwave blasted outward, blowing away leaves and rocks in every direction. This wave carried a force that could vanquish demons. So powerful! Oh, I gasped, staring at the destruction. I finally understood the character's purpose: visualize its shape, speak its sound, and destroy evil. I was thrilled. I finally had a practical technique. Before this, my fights were clumsy, just biting and scratching. Though I learned to project my inner energy, that was a one-shot trick. Now with this sacred syllable, I have a ranged attack. Just then, a trembling voice broke the silence. Startled, I spun around. The old fox stood a short distance away, completely paralyzed by my shockwave. Fox spirit, I was just practicing, I quickly explained, and caused some damage. I hope you don't mind. It's fine, but how do you know Buddhist techniques? He asked in shock. I was completely dumbfounded. Buddhist. You're saying this technique belongs to the Buddhists? I asked blankly. Of course that holy energy is unmistakable. The old fox nodded, his hands visibly trembling. As a demon, he naturally feared holy power. This aura had instinctively terrified him. I began to realize this syllable is Buddhist. No wonder I couldn't read it. But as a monster, using holy magic is pretty awkward. If I fight a high monk and pull out a Buddhist spell, what will they think? Then I shook my head and told the upright fox I stumbled upon this technique by accident. He gave me a highly skeptical look, as if he suspected I was hiding the truth, but he didn't pry. I see, he said, dropping the subject. I came to invite you to the banquet. My children said they couldn't convince you, so I came myself. A warm, human-like smile spread across his face. A banquet isn't the wedding tomorrow night. I looked up through the canopy and saw pale moonlight filtering down. It was already night. Had a whole day really passed while I was resting. You were so focused on your training that you lost track of time. It's been over a day since you arrived. He chuckled. I muttered to myself. So, this is cultivation, a whole day gone, in a blink. Before I could think, he invited me again. I had no reason to refuse, so I followed him. After a long walk through the forest, we finally arrived. In front of us was a cleared area. Human-style wooden tables were piled with fruit and glowing candles with red festive banners wrapped around the surrounding trees. It looked cheerful, but the joy was strictly superficial. Around those tables, wild beasts sat upright like humans. This eerie sight completely ruined the festive mood. I looked at this demon banquet with a strange feeling, wondering how my massive body would fit. I asked the old fox. He paused, then smiled and pulled out a small clay pill. Dragonkind, this is our family treasure. Swallow this and you can control your size for 2 hours. Then you can easily join the feast. It sounded magical. I swallowed the pill and a strange power instantly surged through my massive body. A clear thought popped into my head. I could actually control my size. Shrink, I commanded, and my body began to change. My body rapidly shrank until I was only 6 feet long. I thanked the old fox and went to find a seat. But suddenly, a tiny fox rushed over, gesturing frantically to the old fox. The old fox's face fell. What a human is at the forest entrance and wandering near the feast, he gasped. I coiled up, highly amused. Someone had actually stumbled into a den of monsters. If they saw all these demons feasting, they'd die of fright. But that wasn't my problem. I slithered over to a vacant seat. The left spot was empty, but on my right sat a rooster spirit. Dragonkind. He greeted politely, waving his large wings awkwardly. Sitchin, I replied respectfully, using the traditional name for roosters. He nodded and left me alone, which was fine by me. I was glad for the quiet. I wanted to see what other beasts would arrive, but then I noticed a bright white aura moving near the forest entrance. Among all the dark energy, it stood out like a lighthouse. That pure white energy meant a human was here. Did the old fox fail to stop him? Curiously, I raised my head. Sure enough, the old fox was smilingly inviting a man into the feast. In my eyes, the man's eyes were covered by demonic energy. Interesting, a demonic illusion. I wondered if the fox made himself invisible or changed everyone's appearance. Everyone my daughter is marrying today, and a special guest has arrived, the fox called. A guest is a guest, so please do me a favor and welcome him to our table. The old fox smiled. The surrounding monsters readily agreed. They didn't eat humans anyway, so they naturally gave him face. I smiled and joined in. I figured out the old fox's trick in this man's eyes. We probably all looked human, but my amusement vanished when he walked straight toward me. Why on earth did he sit right next to me? But I didn't complain. Let him sit. In his eyes, I was probably just another human. "Greetings, friend," he said politely, bowing like a scholar. I gave a brief reply, having no interest in talking. Seeing my coldness, he fell silent. He pulled out a faded white cloth and started wiping sweat from his face. Why was he sweating so much at night? Coiled on my seat, I couldn't help but ask. I went to town for work. I got back a bit late, completely drenched in sweat from rushing. Seeing the bright lights earlier, I figured there was a banquet and shamelessly dropped in for tea. Beside me, a guy in wrinkled robes looked like a eye scholar. "Why do your hands have calluses, brother?" "Should a scholar never do hard work?" I chuckled. After some casual banter, I didn't mind him, but him wandering into a demon banquet was going to end badly. Just then, the banquet began. A crowd of foxes in human form emerged, carrying plates of food. It was human fare, quite a feast, actually. I had no idea where this Who family got it, but I just dug in. But after one bite, I was disappointed. The food made my stomach ache and tasted like ash, though I quite liked the liquor. I sipped my drink, watching the party. Soon I spotted the hosts. Sitting to the southeast was a weasel, and the bride was a calico fox. She was truly a stunning beauty. Beside me, the scholar gasped, his eyes glued to her. I stared at him speechless. In his human eyes, that fox must have looked like a gorgeous woman. Soon, tipsy from the liquor, he grew hazy and started rambling to me. From his chatter, I figured out who he was. His name was Huang Shu from nearby Jiangshui County. He was poor, but he studied hard, hoping to pass the imperial exams. "Don't look down on me," he slurred, face flushed. "My ancestor was a successful provincial scholar. A provincial scholar. Did he also almost pass the metropolitan exam? Wait, did you know him? How did you know he almost passed?" Huang Shu stared at me, eyes wide with confusion. "Was his name Huang Bo?" "My great-grandfather was Huang Bo. Do you really know him? Don't scare me in the dark." Huang Shu jumped. Hearing this, my slitted pupils contracted. I never expected this guy to be the Earth God's great-grandson. What a crazy coincidence. Just days ago, I met the Earth God, and now here was his descendant. Thinking of his lineage, I softened, looked at him, and said, "What are you saying your ancestor passed away ages ago? How could I know him? Right, how could you still we hit it off immediately? Let's drink." Huang Shu dragged me into drinking more. After 3 rounds, he was already completely drunk. I didn't refuse keeping him company. But as I drank, I noticed something. The illusionary mist over his eyes had faded. Oh no, I realized this is bad. Just then Huang Shu turned his head to look. I had another table and nearly died of fright. Sitting there was no human, but a 6-foot centipede. A centipede. Huang Shu shrieked, his scream echoing across the hall. Instantly, the lively banquet fell dead silent, as all the demons glared at him. Just then, the old fox stepped in, waving his hand to summon a gust of black wind. Huang Shu instantly passed out, but the centipede's eyes turned blood red as he lunged toward. Having one's true form exposed is a massive taboo. "Tianlong, do me a favor. Today is my daughter's wedding. Don't kill anyone," the old fox pleaded. Tianlong was a respectful alias wishing him to become a dragon. "Fox immortal. It is not that I refused to show respect, but he ruined my cultivation. I won't kill him at the banquet, but I am taking him. I will kill him outside. I cannot even remember the last time I tasted human flesh." The centipede hissed. The old fox wanted to argue, but ultimately sighed and stepped back. Rules were rules. Huang Shu had exposed him first, leaving the other demons speechless. Watching this, I sighed internally. Others could stay out of it, but I couldn't. I owed the earth god a favor, and now his descendant was in danger. I glared at the centipede, sensing a dark aura tainted with human blood. He had eaten humans before, probably because he lacked the power to hunt more. I looked at the unconscious Huang Shu, then shifted my form. Instantly, my 70-foot serpent body blocked the centipede's path.